If the people of the internet could see my tripod configuration right now, they would probably be like, what are you doing? What's up, everybody? This video is sponsored by Olipop. Wouldn't that be nice?
That would be nice.
Cracking a cold one. Let's do this. Welcome back, everybody. I guess I should be saying welcome back to myself because I haven't made a YouTube video in a long time, as per usual. But I'm going to start backlogging some content. That way I can keep up with posting a little bit easier. Anyways, we're going to jump right into it. I just want to let everybody know that I'm going to be doing kind of a streamer masterclass series. So I'm going to do 3-4 part series based off of one fly. We're working on the Dungeon today by Kelly Gallup. I'm going to be kind of showing you guys how I do it because there's a few things that I do different. But yeah, we're going to do a little series. I'm going to show you how I tie the fly. Maybe do a second video if there's something that I need to do a feature on, like the head of a dungeon, for example. Do a close-up of that. And then I'll probably do a video of me fishing it, talk about how I fish it, where I fish it, maybe catch a fish with it, and we'll see. Yeah, I'm excited to be back in the saddle, and we're going to tie a nice dungeon for you guys today. So sit back and enjoy. I'm going to start off this video by going through my material list. I'm going to be starting with Saluda Beads Streamer Straight Hooks. This is my choice. You can use B10S. That's another really good hook. You could do Fulling Mill streamer stripper hooks. There's a ton of options, but I like the Saluda hooks. I'm going with 2 4s today. We're also going to have some marabou. Got Barred Marabou, Olive Brown Barred Black by MFC. We've got some nice lemon yellow from Nature Spirit here. We're going to need some barred legs, whatever you prefer. I'm using these hairline ones. I got Nature Spirit Schlappen here. Polar Chenille. You guys know me, you follow me on Instagram, you will know that this stuff is in a lot of my flies. Size medium, double pupil lead eye from Hairline. And then for our deer hair, we've got Wapsi Primo strips. Doing a Sculpin olive color on this head. And that's pretty much it for, you know, the main materials. Got a couple other pieces of hardware here. We got some cheap Amazon beads to connect. I use Maxima 20 pound to connect my hooks. Vivis GSP 100 denier for the head. And for the rest of the body, I usually just use whatever. Semperfli, this is a 6/0 classic wax. Yeah, let's get into it, guys. We'll grab our first hook here, put it in the vise, and see if we can't cook something up here. So go ahead, get your thread started. I usually run it right back to, I'd say where the barb would be on your hook. If you have a barb, go back to the barb. And then for this one, I'm going to be doing a solid yellowtail. So I'm going to take this marabou here, and I'm going to pluck 2 nice, clean plumes. Pretty wide, fat ones. You want a nice thick tail on these things. Length doesn't matter. If you get some short ones like this, those are honestly a pretty good feather for it. So I'll grab myself 2 of those. And what I usually do is I take that little center bit there and pluck it out. Otherwise you get this weird, I don't know, sometimes it just makes the tails look weird. I don't know how to explain it. But you're going to get your 2 chunks of marabou, and I measure them out. I make mine just a touch longer than the actual hook. Set that down on there. I go like 2 or 3 loose wraps. And then I go under it. I go underneath the marabou all the way up to, I don't know, probably 1/8 of an inch behind the eye. And then I go back over it. Give it a good pull. Work my way back down. And then for this, little pro tip that I learned from good buddy Jack over at Precision Fly. Twist it before you cut it. and you get a much more flush cut down there. But anywho, check your hook, make sure you're evenly distributed. You're going to take your second clump of marabou here and do the exact same thing. Alright, so I work my way back up and then back down, and I end about halfway in my marabou here. This is where I'm going to take my polar chenille and tie that in. And this is where I vary from Kelly. So I call these polar dungeons. Little bit different style body. I like the way these look. It's a little bit more subtle flash, and it actually kind of creates a little bit fuller of a body than the ones that he does. I think it fishes a little different. I don't think it fishes any better per se, but these ones work for me. I like the way they look. I like the way they fish. And if you like the way it looks, you're going to fish it better. I can guarantee it. So I'll tie in our polar chenille, and then we'll look for some sloppins here. You're going to want one that's not super big for this back hook. So grab yourself a sloppin, grab it by the tip, and kind of pull all these fibers back. See how they open up real nice. And I'll expose just the tip here. Tie that in. And then I work my thread all the way up to just before where we finished our marabou. And then you take your sloppin, then you take your polar chenille, lay the two down there together. And this is called a complex twist. So you just twist these two together, and essentially you're creating a brush. So twist those two up, brush it out a little so everything's nice and even. And you're just going to palmer this forward. So there's two benefits to doing it this way that I think. You've got a much fuller body, much more evenly distributed flash, and I think they're much more durable because the string that this polar chenille is actually made on acts as like a cord, and it traps that sloppin down real good and tight. So added volume to your body and added durability. And I just think it looks sweet. It's hard to beat. Polar chenille is just insane. So I'll wrap it up to about the end of the same point where I ended that marabou. Trap it in there and then snip it out. Then I pull everything back. I get a couple wraps in there just to make sure it's 100% secure. And if you want, kind of brush it back. Make sure it all looks nice and good to you. Pick out any of those fibers that seem trapped. Alrighty. And now I'm going to grab, I'm getting a little weird with the way I do the colors on this one, but now I'm going to grab some of this brown barred black marabou. And I'm actually not looking for a nice piece. I'm looking for the bottom end of a feather, basically. So, better example here for you. So this is a full feather, and you got all these nice lined up tips there. When you take a bottom end, you get much more rough, uneven tips. That's kind of what I want for this section of the fly. And you don't need a bunch, you're just kind of creating a veil here. So we're going to take this little piece, and we're going to run it to where it's just starting probably a third of the way into our tail. And then I trap it like this, and I kind of wiggle my fingers to help disperse it so it covers the whole back of the fly. But same thing as all the other marabou. I usually go like 3 loose wraps and then pull it tight. Do a couple wraps under it. Get one more over it there. Then you do your twist. And get a nice flush cut. And before you really cinch everything down, if you want, you can kind of take a look, make sure you have good coverage of the whole fly. You don't want it to be like, you don't want it all the way on the bottom of the fly on one side, but barely covering the other side. You want it to be almost a perfect right across the middle there. So once you're happy with that, go ahead and build a nice little thread body here, thread head, whatever you want to call it. And that's going to be a nice little platform to put your legs in. Legs are one of those things, it's up to you how many you do. I usually go with 2 and 2. It's always better to tie in more, because if you're fishing it and you're like, man, I don't like that, that looks like just too much going on, you can just rip them out. But if you just put 1 in the back and you wish you had 2, well, you can't really add them back in. So it's easier to rip them out. Same with flash. That's another thing. You can always take it out. You can never put it back in once you're done with the fly. So yeah, get your legs tied in down the side there. Do a couple half hitches here to finish it. And then this is where I come in with some UV craft. Any resin will work. Super glue will work good. Whatever you prefer to use. I know some of you people out there are crazy about your Sally Hansen though, hard as nails. People go nuts over that glue. I don't know why. What are you laughing about? You never heard people talk about that stuff? We're gonna hit it with some Sally Hansen's hard as nails. We're gonna hit this fly with some Zap-A-Gap. It's like, I feel like I hear it in every video. I'm just gonna hit it with some UV resin, dog. Bzz, hit it with the laser beam, dry, done. So we got the back half of our dungeon finished up here. Super easy. Really, really not as complicated as people think they are. Front half is almost identical. But we're gonna throw our front hook in here. We're gonna get our thread started. And this is where we're gonna tie our lead eyes in. So, a couple pointers with lead eyes is I make X wraps. So I'll do 3, 3 the other way. Do 3 this way, do 3 that way. And I'll do that a whole bunch of times. And get those eyes nice and secure. And then before I get crazy with it, I'll set my gap. So I want probably 2 hook eyes worth of space in the front of those eyes there. That's where we're going to spin a stack of hair for the front of our dungeon's head. So I'll get all that set up. I'll get it where I think I want it. And this is where I will take super glue. I know I just went on a rant saying that it's stupid, but for eyes, it's not. So this is where you can take your Sally Hansen's hard as nails and put a little drop of that on your eyes. And then go back to doing a few more of those X's. And then to finish it all, I will do up and over the eye, under the hook. Up and over the eye, under the hook. And I'll just repeat that, I don't know, 20, 30 times. Get a nice foundation in there. Now those eyes should be rock solid. They shouldn't move on you too much. Next thing you're going to do, you're going to grab your whatever you want to connect with. I like to use this 20-pound Maxima Ultra Green. Save your scissors. Use old ones or a pair of cutters of some sort. That stuff definitely will dull your blades. We're just going to take like a 2.5-inch piece and start it a little bit behind the eyes, but get that trapped in there. You almost want to make sure this stuff is on like, so like if this is your hook shank, and this is the, obviously the bottom of your hook, you want to tie this stuff in like here, and then once you fold it over, you're going to go right on the other side. I don't like to have this stuff on top of itself, or like one on the bottom, one on the top, because then your loop rides crooked and the back of the fly will ride crooked. Try to be right on the sides. But I'll tie that back like right to where the bend of the hook starts. So now you take your Amazon craft beads. We're going to pick out 2 of them for this size fly. If you're doing a mini, like 2 6s or a 6 and an 8, then I'll usually just do 1. But anything bigger, I do 2. I think we're going to do... Might throw some green in there. I'm going to go with 2 dark green. Completely trivial. The fish probably will never see the color of these beads. But I will. So, slide your 2 beads on. Grab the back half of your fly. Stick that through there. Go back through both of your beads. And when you pull this, you don't want to pull it so tight that it has no movement. You want to leave a little loop at the back here. Maybe I'll insert a picture of that or something, but you want to leave a loop with enough room for the beads to wiggle. So you get that loop set, and then trap that mono in there. And as you're tightening this, if it seems like it's crooked and the back of the fly is rolling, adjust it before you really cinch down on this stuff. But I'll do that, and I'll run it back up to about the same as where I started the first piece. Don't cut your thread. That is not part of the plan. But yeah, so you get your connection in there, put a nice thread base over that just to make sure it's good and secure. You can double that stuff over if you want. You can run it through the eye or something if you want. I think it is completely unnecessary. I've tied a bajillion of these things and never once have I had one fall apart on me. I have broken the tip of my fly line pulling so hard trying to unsnag a fly. I've broken 20-pound mono. I've broken mini swivels in my leader. Something's going to break before that connection pulls out. You really, really have to be doing something wrong to pull out your connection. So don't overcomplicate it. You don't need to do all these crazy double overs and whatever. It just doesn't make sense. But if you want to, you're more than welcome. So now I'll get my thread back to, again, about where the barb of your hook would be. Pro tip, these little clips from the dollar store are awesome for keeping stuff out of your way. But yeah, we'll get our thread there again, and we're going to grab another butt end of brown. I have a couple butt ends laying around from previous dungeons, so not a good feather. We want see how I got the top cut out of this one? That's what we're looking for, is that butt end, longer, less lined up fibers. And same thing as we did here, go about Now we're going, I'd say, to the back of the first hook. Get your 3 loose wraps in there. Get your thread up to about an 1/8 inch behind the eyes. Trap that marabou in there and work it back. Nice tight wraps, make sure that's not going nowhere. Help save on some bulk. You're going to spin up your front piece and snip it. I'll check. So here I've got a lot of body showing on this side, and if you look on this side, it's all marabou. So when I have that happen, I like to roll the marabou, make sure we're nice and even on both sides. Probably isn't the end of the world, but I do think it will affect the keel of your fly in the water a little bit, and it definitely looks better. So now I'll get my thread to about the point of my hook, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to tie in my polar chenille, then I'm going to tie in a slightly wider schlappen feather, twist them, wrap it up. So I finish this complex twist pretty much right at the back of those eyes. And then I'll kind of go build a little bit of a, I guess you would say, like a base by wrapping over top of that stuff. So you see about how far back I make my little thread dam base. Brush this stuff out. And the whole reason I make that little thread dam base is it gives me a place to tie in the last stack of marabou, my legs, and then I'll have more than enough room behind the eyes to put in all my deer hair moving forward. So next thing we're going to do, we're going to grab another clean, this one's got a couple crinklies, we're going to grab a better one than that, but we'll grab another clean yellow feather. I like that one looks nice. Do the same thing. I'm going to pluck out that tip. We get a little plume. We're going to tie that plume in right behind the eyes, and I usually make it just to the back of the hook. So get your 1, 2, 3 loose wraps. Check, make sure you're good and even here. Kind of spread it out with your finger if you gotta. And then go 2 or 3 in front. 1 more back over the top. 1 more under, just to make sure you're real nice and secure. You don't want to be pulling your marabou out on accident. Twist it and snip it. So, again, check it, make sure you're good and even. If you like it, you can get it all nice and tied down in there. Now we're going back to our silly legs. I'm going to do 2 on the front as well. I take the legs, grab them end to end, and I wrap them around my thread. And you can kind of pick and choose where you want to put them this way. So, just a little tip for you there. Then I'll go under the hook, back over the eye. If you pull too tight, you'll break the leg. Give that 2 or 3. to give everything just a nice little finish. Get my thread up in front of these eyes here. Give a couple half hitches. Snip it out. And boom, we are on to the GSP. This is where things get fun. Kinda. So I'll get my GSP started and I'll run it back behind the eyes there. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the part that everyone is scared of. I'm going to explain it and show you guys how I do it in this video here, but if this video doesn't help you enough, there will be a second one where I go through close-up, zoomed in, much more detail on how to do these. I don't know, deer hair is one of those things, you gotta do it. The only way to get good at it is to do it. So yeah, if this doesn't explain it enough, then feel free to go watch that other one. But we are going to take our deer hair, I'm going to take our big strip here, and you're going to want a pretty hefty clump for your collar, your first stack. And the reason, if you look here, I got probably, I don't know, 2.5, 3 pencils worth of hair. But the reason you want such a big clump is this collar we're about to tie on is actually what's going to keel the fly and help it stay upright. So very crucial. The collar is very crucial. The rest of the head doesn't need to look pretty. It kind of just serves the function of a silhouette, but we like them to look pretty. So you're going to take your stack and you're going to grab a stacker. If you don't have a stacker, it's not the end of the world. You can kind of just neaten these tips up by hand. Stacker just makes your life a little easier. But slip your hair into there. Clean some of this stuff out. Boom, you got a nice, neatly stacked chunk of hair. Grip it good and tight and then brush out some of this under fuzz. Under fur will totally ruin a stack of deer hair. So it's very important you clean it out very good. Yeah, so you take your stack, and I usually make the collar just a touch shorter than that last piece of marabou. So I'll lay it on there on top of the eyes, and then I'll pinch on both sides of it. And this is where you're going to go one without any tension, completely loose here. And then on your second one, that's when you give your tension. And you see how that hair just flares right out? Boom. And then you can nice and gently wiggle your way through this hair here. Try to not trap a whole bunch of it down. Get my thread in front of it here. I got a couple loose ones in there. And this is a little crazy here. I'm gonna get some of that out of my way. But yeah. So there you go. You got your collar stack in. So now you're going to do another stack right below your collar. In this stack, I would say you want a pencil width. Same thing. Clean it out. You can see all that stuff you get out of there. what it will do is cause the hair to not flare, causes it to not pack very well. It'll slip more, just doesn't help. But I'll get that stack, I'll clean it out, I'll trim the tips off of it. If you got a rotary, it helps a lot here. But you set that stack down, just go right over it. Same thing, wiggle your way through it a time or two. Make sure it's all good and cinched down. And then get your thread in front of your eyes here. And this stuff gets unruly sometimes, so if you're like struggling like I am right now, and you keep snagging a bunch of hairs, you can kind of like push it back just to get some of that stuff out of your way. But also don't be afraid if you catch some hairs, it's not the end of the world. But now you got your 2 stacks in the back tied in. The next step here, and since we're doing a single color head, you can just spin this front stack. In my close-up video, I'll do a 2 color head so I can show you guys how I do the different top and bottom colors. It's basically just stack. But this one will just spin it. So you're going to want a decent one, probably 1.5 pencils. Where's the hair? I'll show you guys again. Probably about that. Clean it up real good. Kind of even out the butt ends there. Doesn't have to be perfect. Trim up the tips. And what you're going to do here is you're going to take this stack, grab it, and you're going to go same thing. 1 loose wrap, 2nd loose wrap, and on your 2nd one you want to start to pull it. And when this starts to roll, you want to just pull and let it spin the rest of the way. So I've got tension, it's starting to flare. I'm just going to let go and pull. You see how when you let go and pull, that hair just goes, whew, spins right around. Put a few more through it to make sure it's tight and secure. And then you can pack your hair back with your fingers. And you're going to basically look for the eye of your hook here. Wiggle your thread out to the front. It's okay if you're trapping some hairs. It's not going to be the end of the world. Obviously less is better, but it's not the end of the world. But you get your thread up to the eye there. And then you can do, I like to do half hitches. And I use my fingernail as like a half hitch tool basically. And I put the eye of the hook in there and I run a couple half hitches right off my fingernail into the eye of the hook. Make sure you got a good little 4 or 5 of them in there. And boom! You tied it. So we are halfway there with the head. Now is where you get to have some fun and decide a little bit more about the profile of your fly. So we're going to take a razor blade here. Use just Walmart brand, double-sided. And kind of get a little bend in it, and just first cut, I go for a very general shape. And just kind of clean up some of this craziness that we got going on here. So now that you got a general shape, this is where you really want to take your time, because you can always cut more hair off. You can't put it back on. So if you make a bad cut and you ruin your head, you're kind of cooked. You're going to have to cut through your thread and retie it pretty much, which I do recommend doing. Never give up on a fly. If you're like, this head looks like trash, don't finish it like that and then put the fly in a box and never fish it, because you're not going to, because you don't like it. Just cut it off, retie your hair in, retrim it. It will, you know, it sucks to do, but that's how you get good at this stuff, and that's how you fill your box with flies that you are going to fish. But anyways, what I do here is now I'll start grabbing my blade like this, and I'll take my sides, and I'll use the eye of the hook as like a guide pretty much, but I'll run my sides just about flush with those lead eyes. So you see there, I got eyes showing both sides. And then on the bottom, I will go again, just about flush with those eyes. And I'll kind of work it. You want to stay away from harsh lines on the head. You want a nice, smooth, round, contoured head. This is where a rotary really helps. If you don't have a rotary, then I would pull the fly out of your vise and hold it by the front hook and work it like that. But you'll see I go just about flush with my eyes on the bottom too. You don't need a big bottom on the head here. When you get to these hairs that are kind of leaching back into the body, I'll just kind of take the razor blade and like feather at those to clean them up a little bit, because you don't want them going way back there. They'll kind of hinder some of the movement of some of those feathers and whatnot back there. Just be careful while you're doing that you don't accidentally cut like your legs or cut a bunch of your slopping out. There's that. And then on the top, depending on what you want, I'm kind of going for a sculpin here. You can start trimming, and you can either leave it nice and fat, or you can shape it up a little more, like some of mine. I'm sure you guys have seen some of mine where they got a much more, like I guess like a bullet type shape head to them rather than a bigger, rounder head. It all depends on what you want to imitate and what you like. Like I said, for this one, I'm going fat for a sculpin. And the whole time you're trimming this, you're being really careful to not cut a bunch of your collar hairs up here out. Because like I said, that collar does serve a purpose. Most of this head, really, the only purpose of it is a silhouette. But that collar actually affects the way that it swims. So if there's one thing you don't want to mess up, I would say it's the collar. But I'll be honest with you guys, you're going to mess it up a few times until you get it right. And that is the beauty of the Dungeon. This fly will drive you insane until you master it. You're going to hate it. You're going to hate working with deer hair, but then you're going to get one that looks exactly like you wanted it to, and it's going to be the most rewarding feeling ever. Deer hair is one of those things that's like, when you get it, it's an extremely accomplishing task. But I will give you some piece of advice too. Less is more. If you're liking it and you're like, oh, this doesn't look half bad, you're better off stopping. If you keep going, you're going to cut too deep. You're going to cut something off, and then you're going to be like, shit, I just ruined that whole entire fly. So I'm happy with it. I like where that's at. I'm going to take my little clip off, shake that fly out. And then the last two things we got to do here, and then we're done with our dungeon. So I shake it out and get it how I want it. And then I'll cut my legs. This is totally up to you guys, but for my front legs, I cut them at the end of the back hook. And then for my back legs, I cut them right at the end of the marabou tail. So those are my legs cut. And then I'm going to take my little bodkin here, get myself some UV resin, and I'm just going to stab it down into the eye of the hook. Just get some in there. Because the last thing we want is to put all this time into one of these nice deer hair heads, and then your half hitches or whip finishes come undone, or a tooth hits them, and poof, all the hair falls off. So I do that, hit it with the light, and boom, baby, there's your finished product. You have officially tied Creeks and Critters version of Kelly Gallup's famous, Kelly Gallup's famous sex dungeon. So, like I said, I call these the Polar Dungeon. I did make my head a little smaller than I wanted to for the sculpin style, but it's kind of one of those things where you guys can decide whether you want a skinny one, fat one, just it all, what are you imitating? You know, sculpins, you got those real fat, flat, wide heads, and then you got like shad and stuff like that, where it's a sharper, skinnier profile to them. There's a lot of room to play with this fly. You can change colors endlessly. If you want more flash, less flash, you know, you can add flash strips down the sides. There's a ton you can do here. It's a great platform to play with, but this is the exact way that I like my dungeons. This is how I fish them, and they crush. This is hands down the most productive fly for me. So figured I had to kick off the streamer series with this right here. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope this video was helpful to you. If you got any questions, if I didn't explain anything, or if there's something you want to see a little more attention to detail on, drop a comment below and let me know. And tie one up, tag me on Instagram at Creeks and Critters. I'd love to see what you guys come up with from this video, and I'd love to see some fish on them. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next video.